March 15, 1944. Tempelhof Airfield, Berlin, Germany. Oberstleutnant Heinrich Bär lifted the intelligence report from his desk and squinted at the grainy photograph clipped to the upper corner. His weathered face, marked by 200 combat sorties, twisted into a contemptuous smirk. "Look at this," Bär said, flicking the photograph with his index finger. "The Americans have mounted some ridiculous computing device in their cockpits." Major Wilhelm Herget leaned forward, studying the image, then threw his head back in genuine laughter. "They cannot train their pilots properly, so they build them toys to do the thinking." Hauptmann Franz Stigler, Intelligence Section Liaison, shifted his weight and tapped the technical specifications below the photograph. "The report suggests it compensates for deflection automatically. Our sources indicate production has begun at scale." But Bär waved him off with a dismissive gesture. "Franz, we have destroyed American formations at ratios of 8-to-1. At Schweinfurt, we shot down 60 bombers. At Regensburg, another 60. At the second Schweinfurt raid, we destroyed 77 heavy bombers in a single day." Bär spread 3 mission reports across his desk, each documenting German victories with mathematical precision. At Schweinfurt-Regensburg, the 8th Air Force lost 147 bombers in 1 week. At Bremen, 30 bombers fell in minutes. At Oschersleben, 11 bombers destroyed within the first attack wave. The mathematics were undeniable. German pilots possessed superior training, superior discipline, superior aircraft, and superior tactics. What Bär didn't know, what none of them could have known as they laughed in that cramped office overlooking the Reich's capital, was that the American gyroscopic gunsight would destroy the Luftwaffe's fighter arm within 11 months. The numbers would become catastrophic. American kill ratios would reverse from 2-1 against to 4-1 in favor. American factories would produce 260 K-14 gunsights monthly by October 1944. German fighter losses would exceed 1,000 pilots per month by January 1945. The laughter in that Berlin office would become history's most expensive miscalculation, measured in 25,000 Luftwaffe pilots killed in 12 months. Oberstleutnant Heinrich Bär had earned his Knight's Cross with oak leaves through 180 confirmed victories on the Eastern Front before transferring to defense of the Reich operations in January 1944. At Kursk, he destroyed 9 Soviet aircraft in 2 days. At Stalingrad, his staffel claimed 43 kills in 1 week. At Kharkov, Bär personally shot down 6 Il-2 Sturmovix in a single afternoon sortie, each kill requiring an average of 220 rounds of 20mm ammunition and 47 seconds of pursuit time. His Bf-109 G6 mounted a 30mm Mk-108 cannon firing 650 rounds per minute, supplemented by 2 13mm MG-131 machine guns producing a combined throw weight of 3.8 kilograms per second. Against American B-17 formations, Bär's tactics emphasized head-on attacks exploiting the bombers' limited forward defensive armament, closing from 200 meters to 200 meters in approximately 38 seconds, firing a 3-second burst totaling 64 30mm rounds and 156 30mm rounds. At Stuttgart on September 6, 1943, Bär destroyed 3 B-17s in 7 minutes. At Marienburg on October 9, 1943, his staffel claimed 9 bombers in 15 minutes. At Münster on October 10, 1943, Bär personally destroyed 2 B-17s and damaged 3 others in a 12-minute engagement, expending 340 rounds of ammunition total. American P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang fighters had proven vulnerable to German tactics through early 1944. At Frankfurt on January 29, 1944, German fighters destroyed 5 P-51s for 1 Bf-109 lost. At Leipzig on February 20, 1944, The ratio stood at 7 American fighters destroyed for 3 German losses. At Berlin on March 6, 1944, 8 P-51s fell while German losses totaled 2 aircraft. American pilots demonstrated inferior deflection shooting skills, with average gunnery accuracy estimated at 2% during turning combat. German pilots trained for 240 hours before operational assignment, compared to American pilots' 200 hours, and German training emphasized deflection shooting with extensive practice against towed sleeve targets. The Luftwaffe's technical superiority appeared absolute. The Bf-109 G6 achieved 640 km/h maximum speed at 7,000 meters altitude, climbed to 5,000 meters in 5.8 minutes, and carried sufficient ammunition for 42 seconds of sustained fire. The Fu-190A8 reached 654 km/h at 6,000 meters, climbed to 5,000 meters in 7.1 minutes, and mounted 4 20mm cannons plus 2 13mm machine guns. American fighters carried insufficient ammunition for extended combat, with P-51B Mustangs limited to approximately 25 seconds of fire from 6 50 caliber machine guns. The mathematics seemed irrefutable. Hauptmann Franz Stigler reviewed intelligence reports in his quarters at Tempelhof on March 18, 1944. 3 days after Bär dismissed the gyroscopic gunsight photographs. Document LWNT 447 detailed. American fighter production reaching top 100 aircraft monthly as of February 1944. Document LWINT 449. Describe the K-14 gunsight installation proceeding across operational P-51 squadrons at a rate of 80 aircraft per week. Document LWINT 451 included testimony from Feldwebel Otto Schultz, shot down over Holland on March 12, 1944, who reported, "The American Mustang pilot maintained a turning pursuit for 42 seconds without losing sight picture. His burst struck my aircraft center mass despite a 70-degree deflection angle. This shooting accuracy exceeds any previous engagement," Stigler drafted memorandum. Insum 118 to Luftwaffe Reich Headquarters. American fighter gunnery accuracy appears to have increased substantially. Recommend tactical evaluation of reported gyroscopic computing gunsight. Production scale suggests widespread deployment imminent. The memorandum reached headquarters on March 20, 1944, was filed in the Technical Intelligence section, and generated no tactical directives. German High Command prioritized bomber interception over fighter versus fighter combat, calculating that destroying American heavy bombers represented the critical mission objective. Fighter losses remained acceptable, provided bomber attrition rates maintained strategic significance. Lieutenant Karl Hartmann flew Bf-109, G6 Werknummer 163824, as wingman in 2 JG-3, operating from Salzwedel Airfield, 80 kilometers west of Berlin. On March 24, 1944, Hartmann scrambled at 11:47 hours to intercept American bomber formations approaching Schweinfurt. At 12:03 hours, 30 kilometers south of Hannover at 7,200 meters altitude, Hartmann observed 6 P-51 Mustangs diving from 8,000 meters toward his staffel. Standard evasion tactics required braking hard left and diving to build separation speed. Hartmann executed the brake at 12:03:18, rolling inverted and pulling through a split S maneuver. 1 P-51 followed, maintaining pursuit through the 7-second maneuver and establishing a deflection shot as Hartmann pulled out of the dive at 4,800 meters. Tracer rounds converged on Hartmann's aircraft at 12:03:47. His Bf-109 shuddered as 50 caliber rounds punctured the right wing, severed the aileron control rod, and destroyed the right main gear hydraulic line. Hartmann attempted a hard right brake to spoil the Americans' aim. The P-51 pilot compensated instantly, holding the gunsight pipper on target through the maneuver. A second burst at 12:03:51 struck Hartmann's engine, penetrating the cooling system and detonating the supercharger. At 12:03:53, Hartmann rolled inverted and jettisoned his canopy, evacuating the aircraft as white coolant smoke streamed from the engine cowling. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 35 seconds. Kill time, 35 seconds. The American P-51 pilot, First Lieutenant James Howard of the 356th Fighter Squadron, 354th Fighter Group, had fired 180 rounds total, achieving 9 hits on the Bf-109, a 5% accuracy rate representing 250% improvement over previous average American fighter gunnery. At 12:17 hours on March 24, 1944, 12 kilometers north of Hartmann's shootdown, Oberfeldwebel Josef Zwernemann engaged 4 P-51s attacking his staffel from the port quarter. Zwernemann initiated a left-climbing spiral to force the Americans into a turning fight where superior German training would dominate. 2 P-51s followed into the spiral. At 12:17:24, the trailing P-51 opened fire from 420 meters range at a 55-degree deflection angle. Zwernemann's Bf-109 absorbed hits in the tail section and fuselage. He reversed his turn hard right, loading 6 Gs in the reversal. The P-51 pilot maintained tracking, placing additional rounds into Zwernemann's left wing route. At 12:17:38, 20mm cannon shells from Zwernemann's aircraft struck the P-51's propeller hub, damaging the reduction gear. The American broke off combat, trailing light smoke. Zwernemann attempted to pursue, but discovered his left aileron controls severed. He disengaged at 12:17:52, landing at Salzwedel at 12:38 hours with 14 .50 caliber bullet holes in his aircraft. The engagement revealed disturbing evidence. American pilots maintained accurate fire through high-G maneuvers previously effective at spoiling deflection solutions. Zwernemann submitted combat report JG-3-147. American gunnery accuracy has increased substantially. Enemy pilot maintained tracking through 6G reversal and placed effective fire despite maximum deflection angle. Total engagement duration over Hannover sector, March 24, 1944, 16 minutes, 34 seconds. Enemy losses: 1 Bf-109 destroyed, 2 Bf-109s damaged, 1 pilot killed, 2 pilots wounded. American losses: 0 aircraft destroyed, 1 P-51 damaged, returned to base. Kill ratio: 0.1 favoring Americans. The ammunition expended in this 16-minute engagement, approximately 2,400 rounds of .50 caliber fired by American fighters, exceeded the monthly allocation for gunnery training at Luftwaffe Fighter Training School, FFS AB 123 at Altenburg, which received 1,800 rounds monthly for 30 student pilots. Oberstleutnant Bär reviewed after-action reports from March 24th encounters at evening briefing. Intelligence dismissed the reports as combat stress exaggeration common among inexperienced pilots. Lieutenant Hartmann possessed 47 hours combat time and 12 confirmed victories, hardly inexperienced by March 1944 standards. Bär noted this discrepancy, but accepted the official assessment. Hartmann had been shot down. Naturally, he would attribute his loss to some technical advantage rather than admit superior American pilot skill. The alternative explanation, that American fighters suddenly achieved 250% gunnery accuracy improvement, seemed impossible. No training program could produce such gains in weeks. No mechanical sight could compute deflection solutions accurately during combat maneuvers where aircraft experienced 3 to 7 G-forces. The laws of physics governing bullet trajectory, target motion, and shooter stability remained constant. Bär calculated that at 420 meters range with 55 degrees deflection, a .50 caliber bullet required 0.6 seconds flight time, while the target aircraft traveled approximately 68 meters. Computing the required lead angle demanded solving differential equations, accounting for projectile ballistics, target velocity vector, shooter velocity vector, gravitational drop, and air density. Human pilots approximated these calculations through experience and instinct. No mechanical device could perform such computations in real time. The mathematics precluded it. Dayton, Ohio, April 1944. Mark Dodson tightened. The final mounting bolt securing the K-14 computing Gunsight into the instrument panel of P-51D5NA serial number 44-13586, Building 19 at Wright Field's modification. Center produced 47 K-14 installations daily. Every 8 hours, another squadron's worth of P-51 Mustangs received the gyroscopic gunsight system that would revolutionize air combat. In January 1944, America produced just 120 K-14 gunsights monthly, with installations proceeding at Douglas Aircraft's modification facility in Oklahoma City at a rate of 18 aircraft per week. By March 1944, production reached 680 gunsights monthly across 3 facilities: Sperry Gyroscope Company's Great Neck plant, General Electric's Schenectady plant, and Ferrand Optical's New York facility. By June 1944, Wright Field's Modification Center alone was producing 47 complete installations daily, 410 per month. This single facility was producing more K-14 gunsights monthly than the entire German aircraft gunsight industry produced total gunsights across all types, which reached 1,200 units monthly, including basic WWII reflector sights. Dorothy Kellerman, previously a seamstress at Cincinnati's Shillito's department store, now operated a precision lens grinding machine producing 16 K-14 optical assemblies every 8-hour shift at Ferrand Optical's 740 Broadway facility in Manhattan. Each optical assembly required grinding 3 precision lenses to tolerances of 0.002 inches, polishing with rouge compound to achieve surface smoothness of 20 millionths of an inch deviation, and anti-reflection coating through vacuum deposition. Kellerman's production rate of 16 assemblies per shift, 2 per hour, exceeded the entire monthly output of Germany's Zeiss facility at Jena, which produced 12 gunsight optical assemblies monthly for the Luftwaffe across all gunsight types. Her single grinding machine, a custom-modified Brown & Sharp Universal, cost $14,000 and represented more precision optical production capacity than existed in all of Axis-occupied Europe east of France. Kellerman earned $185 per hour, received free safety equipment replaced monthly, 8 subsidized cafeteria lunches costing 15 cents, and qualified for production bonuses reaching $22 per week when output exceeded quotas. She produced more precision optical assemblies in one shift than Germany's entire fighter gunsight program produced in a week. Robert Jackson, from Birmingham, Alabama, operated a gyroscope balance testing station at Sperry's Great Neck facility that validated 80 gyroscope assemblies daily. His single station's daily output, 80 gyroscopes achieving 0.2% rotational accuracy specifications, exceeded the monthly production of all German aviation gyroscope manufacturers combined, which totaled 63 units across all applications in March 1944. Jackson earned $2.10 per hour operating equipment valued at $32,000, testing instruments that cost $127 each to manufacture, in a facility consuming 4,800 kilowatt-hours of electricity daily. The testing station rejected approximately 8% of gyroscopes for failing to meet specifications. These rejected units, discarded as inadequate for American combat requirements, exceeded German gyroscope specifications by a margin of 300% and would have represented cutting-edge technology if deployed in Luftwaffe aircraft. Jackson's testing station processed more gyroscopic instruments in one day than the Luftwaffe received in 1 month across all aircraft types. Charles Wilson, $1-a-year man from General Electric's Aviation Division, managed procurement coordination for K-14 production across the 3 manufacturing facilities. Wilson's office in the Federal Building at 26 Federal Plaza in Manhattan coordinated delivery of 127 component types from 43 suppliers. Scheduled shipping for 2,160 complete gunsight assemblies monthly by September 1944, and maintained inventory reserves sufficient for 3 months of production despite shipping disruptions. His procurement budget for April 1944, alone, $847,000, exceeded the entire German fighter gunsight program's annual budget of $620,000. Wilson coordinated shipping 680 tons of optical glass monthly, 240 tons of aluminum alloy monthly for housings, 1,400 tons of electrical components monthly, including 840,000 vacuum tubes for the computing amplifiers, and maintained a reserve stockpile of copper wire sufficient to circle Manhattan Island twice. The administrative capacity represented by Wilson's 23-person procurement team exceeded the entire administrative structure of Germany's Reich Air Ministry's equipment procurement division for fighter aircraft instruments. Americans discarded 1,200 pounds of aluminum scrap daily at Wright Field Modification Center, from trimming mounting brackets to fit individual P-51 cockpit variations. Germany allocated 80 pounds of aluminum monthly to its primary fighter gunsight manufacturer for prototype development. The waste from bracket trimming at one American facility exceeded Germany's total monthly allocation by 15-fold. Workers threw away lens grinding compound, cerium oxide rouge worth $8 per pound, that Germany rationed by the ounce for its entire optical industry. Farrand Optical consumed 40 pounds of cerium oxide weekly. Germany allocated 30 pounds quarterly for all military optical production. The cafeteria at Wright Field's Modification Center discarded 340 pounds of food daily, including 120 pounds of meat, 80 pounds of bread, and 60 pounds of vegetables. Luftwaffe fighter pilots at Salzwedel received 220 pounds of meat monthly to feed 180 personnel, less than 2 days' waste from one American facility's cafeteria. Sperry Gyroscope's Great Neck plant rejected 127 gyroscope assemblies in April 1944 for failing to meet specifications. The production cost of these rejected units, $16,129, could have built Germany's entire month's production of fighter gun sights with funds remaining. The electrical power consumed at the 3 K-14 manufacturing facilities, 87,000 kilowatt-hours daily, exceeded the total electrical generation capacity of Munich by 12,000 kilowatt-hours. This single program, K-14 gunsight production across 3 facilities, exceeded Germany's entire fighter aircraft instrument production capacity by a factor of 3.4.1 measured in units, 8.2.1 measured in technical sophistication, and 14.7.1 measured in manufacturing precision. Hauptmann Franz Stigler drafted Intelligence Summary LWINT 508 on April 28, 1944, analyzing American fighter production capacity based on interrogation of Captain Robert Johnson, 56th Fighter Group pilot, captured near Hannover on April 24. Johnson described K-14 gun sight installation proceeding across 8th Air Force fighter groups at approximately 120 aircraft per week. Stigler's analysis calculated total American fighter production at 2,400 aircraft monthly, suggesting 960 aircraft would receive K-14 installation monthly by June 1944. German fighter production in April 1944 reached 1,740 aircraft total, of which 890 were single-engine fighters. Stigler's memorandum in sum 141 concluded, American production capacity permits equipping entire fighter force with computing gun sight within 4 months while maintaining numerical growth. German production cannot match American technical advancement while sustaining numerical expansion. Recommend priority assessment of gyroscopic gunsight effectiveness. The memorandum reached Luftwaffe Reich headquarters on May 2, 1944, was reviewed by Oberst Walter Grabmann, Fighter Staff Operations Officer, and generated no operational directives. German tactical doctrine prioritized bomber destruction over fighter combat, and bomber interception tactics remained effective despite increasing American fighter resistance. May 8, 1944. Brunswick, Germany, 13:28 hours. Lieutenant Karl Hartmann was initiating his third combat sortie since his March 24th shoot-down when he observed 8 P-51 Mustangs approaching from the southwest at his altitude of 6,800 meters. Standard protocol required maintaining formation integrity and coordinating attacks against the American bombers, not engaging enemy fighters unless directly threatened. But the P-51 formation turned directly toward Hartmann's staffel, clearly intending engagement. At 13:28:14, Hartmann's flight leader signaled attack authorization. At 13:28:19, Hartmann rolled his Bf-109 G6 inverted and pulled through a split S diving attack toward the nearest P-51, building airspeed to 680 km/h. The American pilot, first. Lieutenant Robert Connor, 302nd Fighter Squadron, 357th Fighter Group, held his formation position, apparently unaware of Hartmann's attack from above and behind. At 13:28:26, Hartmann opened fire from 380 meters range, 0 deflection, dead astern. His 30mm cannon fired an 8-round burst. 3 rounds struck the P-51's left wing. The American aircraft rolled hard left and pulled up, forcing Hartmann to follow into a climbing turn. At 13:28:34, Connor reversed his turn, rolling right and pulling down into a diving reversal. Hartmann followed, maintaining pursuit, loading 5 Gs in the reversal. Connor's aircraft appeared perfectly positioned for a stern attack. Hartmann aligned his Gyro Gunsight and pressed the firing button at 13:28:39. Connor broke hard left, pulling 7 Gs according to Hartmann's estimate, based on the P-51's turn radius. The deflection angle exceeded 60 degrees. Hartmann's burst passed behind Connor's aircraft by approximately 40 meters, standard miss at high deflection. Connor continued his brake for 2 seconds, then reversed right. At 13:28:44, Hartmann observed muzzle flashes from Connor's P-51 despite the 70-degree deflection angle. Tracers converged on Hartmann's Bf-109, striking the right wing root, canopy frame, and vertical stabilizer. At 13:28:46, Hartmann's engine coughed as coolant temperature spiked to 118 degrees Celsius. He rolled inverted and dove, attempting to disengage. Connor maintained pursuit. At 13:28:51, a second burst from Connor's guns struck Hartmann's aircraft in the tail section, severing elevator control cables. Hartmann's Bf-109 pitched nose down uncontrollably. He jettisoned the canopy at 13:28:54 and evacuated the aircraft at 5,200 meters altitude. His parachute deployed at 13:28:58. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 32 seconds. Kill time, 32 seconds. At 13:29:02, 3 kilometers east of Hartmann's shoot-down, Feldwebel Hans Berger engaged a P-51 in a turning fight. Berger possessed 180 hours combat time and 27 confirmed victories. He forced the American into a low-speed turning engagement where German pilot training advantages should dominate. At 13:29:18, the P-51 pilot, Second Lieutenant William O'Brien, 362nd Fighter Squadron, reversed his turn. Berger followed, loading 6 Gs, maintaining inside position. O'Brien held his turn for 3 seconds, then reversed again. Berger anticipated the reversal and initiated his own reversal 4 seconds before O'Brien completed his, achieving perfect tracking position. At 13:29-24, Berger opened fire from 290 meters range with 45 degrees deflection. His burst missed by 30 meters. O'Brien's aircraft shuddered as he loaded 7 Gs in another reversal. Berger followed, firing continuously. His rounds passed behind O'Brien's aircraft. At 13:29-29, O'Brien fired a 2-second burst despite maintaining a 7G turn. Tracer rounds converged on Berger's Bf-109, striking the fuselage, left wing, and engine cowling. At 13:29-31, Berger's aircraft absorbed 15 .50 caliber hits. His canopy shattered, the control stick went slack as hydraulic pressure failed, and white smoke erupted from the engine. Berger reduced throttle and dove for emergency landing. At 13:29-44, he bellied his Bf-109 into a pasture 6 kilometers southeast of Brunswick. Elapsed time from engagement to combat loss, 26 seconds. Kill time, 26 seconds. At 13:31:06, Oberfeldwebel Josef Svernemann led 4 Bf-109s. In a coordinated attack against 3 P-51s pursuing German bombers northwest of Brunswick. Svernemann positioned his element for a high-side diving attack, achieving surprise. At 13:31:18, all 4 German fighters opened fire simultaneously from 420 meters range. The trailing P-51 absorbed hits from Svernemann's 30mm cannon and exploded, the pilot killed instantly. At 13:31:21, the remaining 2 P-51s broke in opposite directions. Svernemann followed the left-braking P-51 into a descending spiral. At 13:31:26, the American reversed his turn. Svernemann anticipated the reversal, having observed this tactic 3 times in previous engagements. He positioned for a 60-degree deflection shot as the American rolled out of his reversal. At 13:31:28, Svernemann fired a 4-second burst, expending 48 30mm rounds and 120 13mm rounds. His tracers passed 15 meters ahead of the P-51. The American had continued his reversal longer than anticipated. The P-51 pilot, Captain George Preddy, 328th Fighter Squadron, 352nd Fighter Group, fired a 1-second burst at 90-degree deflection. 22 rounds struck Svernemann's aircraft, destroying the right aileron, puncturing the coolant tank, and severing hydraulic lines. At 13:31:33, Svernemann disengaged, trailing white smoke, and made emergency landing at Braunschweig Airfield at 13:47 hours. Elapsed time from engagement to combat loss, 7 seconds. Kill time, 7 seconds. Total engagement duration, Brunswick sector, May 8, 1944, 3 minutes, 46 seconds. Enemy losses, 2 Bf-109s destroyed, 2 Bf-109s damaged beyond immediate repair, 1 pilot killed, 3 pilots wounded. American losses, 1 P-51 destroyed, 1 pilot killed. Kill ratio, 2.1 favoring Americans. The ammunition expended in this 3-minute engagement by American fighters, approximately 4,800 rounds of .50 caliber, exceeded Luftwaffe fighter training allocation for JG-3's entire pilot training pipeline for 2 months, which received 2,200 rounds monthly for 16 student pilots. Oberstleutnant Bär reviewed after-action reports from May 8th engagements at evening briefing. The pattern had become undeniable. American fighter pilots demonstrated vastly improved deflection shooting accuracy. Hartmann, shot down for the second time, reported American fire accuracy at high deflection angles impossible to achieve through pilot skill alone. Berger, an experienced combat pilot, described American tracer convergence during a 7G turn, a maneuver that should completely disrupt any deflection solution. Zwernemann, one of JG-3's most skilled pilots, reported American accuracy at 90-degree deflection. Bär examined the mathematical implications. A 70-degree deflection shot at 300 meters range against a target traveling 580 km/h required leading the target by approximately 95 meters. Computing the required lead demanded accounting for target velocity, shooter velocity, bullet flight time of 0.52 seconds, gravitational drop of 1.3 meters, and G-loading effects on bullet trajectory. Human pilots approximated these calculations through extensive training and combat experience. The American pilots demonstrating this accuracy were combat novices, many with fewer than 10 missions. The only explanation was the gyroscopic computing gun sight. Bär had dismissed the device as mechanically impossible in March. The mathematics were proving him catastrophically wrong. Intelligence reports confirmed K-14 installation across 8th Air Force fighter groups. Document LWINT 547 dated May 12, 1944, described the K-14 system in detail based on examination of a captured P-51 forced down near Metz on May 9. The Gunsight incorporated a rate gyroscope measuring aircraft angular, velocity and pitch and yaw axes. The pilot set target wingspan using a range estimating dial. The computing mechanism automatically calculated required lead angle based on target range, rate of angular motion, and ballistic characteristics of .50 caliber ammunition. The system updated deflection solution 60 times per second, maintaining accuracy during high G maneuvers. The gunsight's effective range was 730 meters. Its accuracy exceeded fixed gunsights by 400%, and its production cost was $127 per unit. German intelligence estimated American production at 1,800 units monthly as of May 1944. Hauptmann-Stigler analyzed German gunsight production capacity in Intelligence Summary LWINT 556, dated May 18, 1944. German manufacturers produced 1,340 aircraft gun sights monthly total, including 890 WWII 16B reflector sights for single-engine fighters, 280 WWII C-12D sights for twin-engine fighters, and 170 specialized sights for bombers and ground attack aircraft. None incorporated gyroscopic computing capability. German gunsight development programs had investigated computing gunsight concepts in 1941, but technical complexity and manufacturing resource constraints prevented production implementation. The WWII 16B reflector sight cost 23 Reichsmarks to manufacture, required 2.8 hours assembly time, and achieved 98.7% reliability. A gyroscopic computing gun sight similar to the K-14 would cost approximately 180 Reichsmarks, require 47 hours assembly time, and demand precision manufacturing capacity that did not exist in German industry. Stigler's analysis concluded, American production capacity permits deploying technically superior equipment at scale impossible for German industry to match. Single American facility produces more computing gun sights monthly than entire German industry produces total gun sights. Recommend priority development of counter-tactics. The memorandum reached Luftwaffe Reich headquarters on May 20, 1944, was reviewed, and generated Tactical Directive FDR 88, instructing fighter groups to avoid extended turning engagements with American fighters. The directive proved tactically impossible to implement. Avoiding fighter combat meant abandoning bomber interception missions. They tried attacking bombers while evading fighters. The Americans provided fighter escort in overwhelming numbers. They attempted head-on bomber attacks from outside fighter cover range. The Americans extended fighter range with drop tanks. They tried diving attacks followed by immediate disengagement. The Americans maintained pursuit using superior P-51 dive speed. They attempted coordinated attacks splitting American fighter formations. The Americans maintained formation discipline and covered each other's defensive breaks. Every tactical adjustment met American counter-tactics enabled by numerical superiority, technical advantages, and the K-14 Gunsight's elimination of deflection shooting skill requirements. June 20th, 1944, Politz, Germany. 1414 Hours Oberfeldwebel. Josef Zwernemann was leading a swarm of 4 Bf-109 G-14s against American bombers attacking the Politz synthetic oil refinery when 16 P-51 Mustangs dove from 8,200 meters altitude directly into his formation. At 14:14:08, the P-51s opened fire simultaneously at 520 meters range. At 14:14:11, Lieutenant Werner Müller's aircraft exploded as 50 caliber rounds detonated his ammunition. At 14:14:13, Unteroffizier Karl Schmidt's Bf-109 absorbed 43 hits, killing Schmidt instantly. At 14:14:16, Feldwebel Otto Klein's aircraft lost its tail section to concentrated fire. At 14:14:19, Zwernemann broke hard left, loading 7 Gs, and dove to escape. 2 P-51s followed. At 14:14:24, tracer rounds converged on Zwernemann's aircraft despite his executing a 9G break exceeding his Bf-109's structural limits. At 14:14:27, his left wing buckled as 50 caliber rounds severed the main spar. Zwernemann's aircraft rolled inverted and entered an uncontrollable spin. He jettisoned his canopy at 14:14:29 and evacuated at 4,600 meters altitude. At 14:14:33, his 3 Staffel comrades were dead, their aircraft scattered across 6 kilometers of German countryside. Total engagement duration, 25 seconds. Elapsed time from first contact to complete Staffel destruction, 25 seconds. Zwernemann observed the engagement from his parachute as he descended. The Americans had achieved perfect deflection solutions on all 4 targets simultaneously, maintaining accuracy through high-G defensive maneuvers. The mathematics had become undeniable. The K-14 Gunsight eliminated deflection shooting as a learnable skill. American novice pilots achieved accuracy matching Germany's best combat veterans. At 14:28 hours on June 20th, 1944, 12 kilometers north of Zwernemann's shoot-down, Hauptmann Franz Stigler observed an engagement between JG-11's 2 Gruppe and approximately 24 P-51s. Stigler was flying as an observer in a Ju-88 reconnaissance aircraft documenting combat effectiveness. For intelligence assessment, at 14:28:14, the P-51s engaged 2 Gruppe's lead Staffel. At 14:28:22, 3 Bf-109s were burning. At 14:28:31, 5 more were destroyed. At 14:28:47, the engagement ended. 9 Bf-109s destroyed in 33 seconds. American losses 0. Kill ratio 9.0 favoring Americans. Stigler documented the engagement in Report LWINT 603. American fighters demonstrate systematic tactical superiority enabled by computing gunsight. German fighter losses in air-to-air combat have become unsustainable. Current loss rate projects to 1,200 pilots per month by August. 1940. Luftwaffe fighter arm will be combat ineffective. By October 1944 at current attrition rate. The report reached Luftflotte Reich headquarters on WWII. June 22, 1944, was reviewed by General Lieutenant Josef Schmid and generated no operational changes. Germany possessed no tactical counter to the K-14 Gunsight, no production capacity to develop competing systems, and insufficient pilot training. Capacity to offset the technology disadvantage. Lieutenant Karl Hartmann survived his second shoot-down and returned to operations with JG-3 on June 28, 1944. He flew 12 combat sorties in July 1944. In 8 engagements with American fighters, Hartmann achieved 0 victories and was shot down 3 times, bailing out twice and crash landing once. His accumulated combat time reached 127 hours across 83 sorties. His confirmed victory total remained 12, unchanged since March 1944. Hartmann survived the war and was captured by American forces on May 8, 1945. In post-war interrogation, he stated, "The Americans destroyed us with their factories, not their pilots." A German pilot with 200 hours training fought American pilots with 80 hours training, but the American had a gun sight that made him shoot like a veteran ace. We could not compete. The mathematics were against us. Building 19, Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, July 1944. At Wright Field Modification Center, K-14 installation production achieved 64 aircraft daily, 1,920 monthly. Every 6 hours, another squadron received computing gun sights that rendered traditional deflection shooting skills obsolete. Americans discarded 1,840 pounds of aluminum scrap daily from manufacturing tolerances and installation modifications. Germany allocated 340 pounds of aluminum monthly to Luftwaffe fighter gun sight manufacturers. The waste from one American facility exceeded Germany's total monthly allocation by a factor of 162:1. Workers at Sperry Gyroscope threw away 72 gyroscope assemblies in July 1944 for failing to meet specifications requiring 0.2% rotational accuracy. These rejected units, manufactured at cost of $127 each, totaling 9,104 exceeded German gyroscope specifications by 200% and would have represented advanced technology if installed in Luftwaffe aircraft. German industry produced 48 aviation gyroscopes total in July 1944 across all applications. The American rejection total exceeded German total production by 150%. The cafeteria at Ferron Optical's Manhattan facility discarded 420 pounds of food daily, including 160 pounds of meat, 90 pounds of bread, 70 pounds of vegetables, and 40 pounds of dairy products. Luftwaffe pilots at Oschersleben Fighter Base received 280 pounds of meat monthly to feed 220 personnel. One American factory cafeteria discarded more meat in 3 days than German fighter pilots received in 1 month. Sperry Gyroscope consumed 6,200 kilowatt-hours of electricity daily for K-14 production. The city of Schweinfurt generated 4,800 kilowatt-hours daily total for all industrial and civilian consumption. One American factory consumed more electrical power than an entire German industrial city. The copper wire used in K-14 electrical systems, 840,000 feet monthly, could have supplied German fighter aircraft electrical systems for 18 months at July 1944 production rates. This single American program, K-14 Gunsight production, exceeded Germany's entire fighter aircraft instrument manufacturing capacity measured in technical sophistication, production precision, resource allocation, and unit output. Americans manufactured 2,060 computing gun sights monthly. Germany manufactured 1,340 total aircraft gun sights monthly across all types, none incorporating computing capability. A single American facility produced more advanced fighter gun sights than Germany's entire aviation industry produced total gun sights. The mathematics were catastrophic. American production capacity exceeded German capacity by factors ranging from 3.1 to 162.1, depending on measurement methodology. Hauptmann Franz Stigler compiled Comprehensive Intelligence Assessment, LWWNT 721, in August 1944, analyzing American fighter effectiveness trends. American fighter kill ratios had reversed from 1.81. German favor in January 1944 to 3.71 American favor in July 1944. Luftwaffe fighter losses averaged 847 aircraft monthly in the first quarter of 1944, increased to 1,050 monthly in the second quarter, and reached 1,440 in July 1944. Pilot casualties exceeded 1,100 in July, including 620 killed and 480 wounded. At current attrition rates, the Luftwaffe would lose 14,400 pilots in 12 months, more than twice the total pilot training output of 6,200 annually. German fighter training had been reduced from 240 hours to 112 hours in June 1944 to increase pilot output, but reduced training exacerbated combat losses as inexperienced pilots faced American fighters equipped with computing gun sights. Stegler's analysis concluded, Luftwaffe fighter arm faces systemic collapse by year-end. American production and technical advantages cannot be overcome through tactical adjustments or training improvements. Current trajectory projects combat effectiveness approaching zero by March 1945, September 27, 1944, Kassel, Germany. 1356 hours, 47. BF-109 G-14s and FW-190. A-8s from JG-3 and JG-27 intercepted 120 B-17 bombers attacking Kassel's Henschel tank factory. The bombers were escorted by 68 P-51 Mustangs from the 4th, 352nd, and 357th Fighter Groups, all equipped with K-14 computing gun sights. The engagement lasted 11 minutes, 42 seconds. At 13:56:08, German fighters initiated attack from 7,800 meters altitude, diving through American fighter cover toward the bomber formation. At 13:56:24, P-51s from the 352nd Fighter Group engaged the diving German fighters. At 13:58:06, 8 BF-109s were destroyed. Kill time per aircraft, 16 seconds average. At 13:58:19, P-51s from the 357th Fighter Group engaged German fighters attacking bombers from below. At 14:18, 11 more German aircraft destroyed. Kill time per aircraft, 12 seconds average. At 14:02:34, P-51s from the 4th Fighter Group engaged remaining German fighters attempting to disengage. At 14:07:50, 13 additional German aircraft destroyed. Kill time per aircraft, 22 seconds average. Enemy aircraft destroyed, 32 BF-109s and FW-190s. American losses, 2 P-51s destroyed, 1 B-17 destroyed. Kill ratio 32.2 or 16.1 favoring Americans. The ammunition expended in this 11-minute engagement, approximately 64,000 rounds of .50 caliber fired by American fighters, exceeded the monthly ammunition allocation for all Luftwaffe fighter training schools combined, which received 48,000 rounds total, monthly for 340 student pilots across 6 training bases. The fuel consumed in this engagement by American fighters, 4,800 gallons of 100-octane aviation gasoline, exceeded the weekly allocation for JG-3's entire group of 48 aircraft, which received 3,200 gallons weekly in September 1944 as fuel shortages constrained Luftwaffe operations. At 14:03 on 47, Oberstleutnant Heinrich Bär, flying FW-190 A-8 at 6,200 meters altitude 3 kilometers east of Kassel, was engaged by 4 P-51s from the 4th Fighter Group. Bär executed a diving reversal, his standard evasion tactic successful in 180 previous combat engagements. 2 P-51s followed. At 14:03:52, the trailing P-51 opened fire at 68 degrees deflection. Tracer rounds converged on Bär's aircraft. At 14:03:54, 50 caliber rounds struck his right wing, fuselage, and engine cowling. Bär reversed left, loading 8 Gs. The P-51 pilot maintained tracking, placing additional rounds into Bär's left wing and tail section. At 14:03:57, Bär's engine seized as cooling system failure caused catastrophic overheating. He rolled inverted and jettisoned his canopy. At 14:03:59, Bär evacuated his aircraft at 4,400 meters altitude. Elapsed time from engagement to destruction, 12 seconds. Kill time, 12 seconds. Heinrich Bär, holder of the Knight's Cross with oak leaves, 2 on 20 confirmed victories, 16 years of combat experience, survived his bailout but was strafed by American fighters during his parachute descent and killed at approximately 14:05:14. The American pilot who shot down Bär, First Lieutenant John Voll, 328th Fighter Squadron, 352nd Fighter Group, possessed 84 hours total combat time and had completed his pilot training 140 days earlier. Voll's deflection shot, computed automatically by his K-14 Gunsight, achieved 6.8% accuracy, 9 times the average American fighter gunnery accuracy recorded in 1943. This wasn't combat. This was systematic annihilation. German pilots with hundreds of hours combat experience were shot down by American pilots with fewer than 100 hours total flight time. The K-14 Gunsight eliminated experience, training, and skill as determining factors in air combat. American novice pilots achieved kill ratios exceeding German aces. The mathematical reality was undeniable. Technology had rendered human skill irrelevant. A computing mechanism solved differential equations in real time, while German pilots approximated solutions through training and instinct. Approximation failed against precision. Human reflexes failed against mechanical calculation. Individual excellence failed against industrial capacity. December 1944. POW Interrogation Center. Frankfurt, Germany. Hauptmann Franz Stiegler sat across from American intelligence officers in a bare concrete room, answering questions about Luftwaffe fighter operations. Stiegler had survived 68 combat missions, witnessed the destruction of the Luftwaffe fighter arm, and been shot down on November 18, 1944, by a P-51 pilot who achieved a 72-degree deflection shot during a high-G defensive break. The interrogation transcript, designated FIR 44-1847, recorded his testimony. "We were not defeated by better soldiers, but by better factories. Your single facility in Dayton produced 1,920 computing gunsights monthly. Our entire industry produced 1,340 total gunsights monthly, none with computing capability. A single American factory produced more advanced gunsights than our entire nation. Your workers earned $1.85 per hour and ate meat daily. Our workers earned subsistence wages and received 220 grams of bread daily. Your factories consumed electricity wastefully, discarded aluminum scrap carelessly, rejected components that exceeded our best specifications. We rationed everything by the gram. You wasted more than we produced. The mathematics were simple. Your excess capacity exceeded our maximum effort. We could not compete. We were defeated before the first K-14 Gunsight entered combat, defeated by industrial capacity we could not match and production technology we could not replicate." Lieutenant Karl Hartmann provided testimony at the same interrogation center on January 8, 1945. Hartmann had survived 4 shootdowns, accumulated 147 combat hours across 103 sorties, and achieved 12 confirmed victories, all before the K-14 Gunsight entered widespread use in April 1944. After April 1944, Hartmann flew 62 additional sorties, achieved 0 additional victories, and was shot down 3 more times. His testimony, recorded in FIR 45094, stated, "I saw American pilots with minimal training shoot down our best veterans. The computing gunsight made every American pilot as accurate as our top aces. They didn't just outproduce us. They revolutionized air combat itself. In 1943, deflection shooting required 200 hours of training and 100 combat missions to master. In 1944, American pilots achieved the same accuracy on their first combat mission. Your gunsight computed solutions we spent years learning to approximate. The technology advantage was absolute. We brought slide rules to a computing machine fight. Additional testimonies from Luftwaffe personnel captured in late 1944 and early 1945 repeated consistent themes. Oberleutnant Werner Schroer, 53 victories before his capture in October 1944. They could lose 1,000 aircraft and replace them in 3 weeks. We lost 1,000 aircraft and could not replace them in 6 months. Their industrial capacity exceeded our total production by factors we couldn't calculate. Hauptmann Emil Leng, 44 victories before his death in September 1944, stated in his final combat report, "American fighters achieve impossible deflection shots. Their novice pilots shoot like veterans. Recommend immediate withdrawal from all air combat pending development of counter-tactics." No counter-tactics were developed. Feldwebel Otto Schultz, 16 victories, captured December 1944. We brought training and experience to fight technology and resources. Technology and resources won. The mathematics were always against us. German intelligence assessments compiled in late 1944 provided comprehensive statistical analysis of American production advantages. American monthly production, 2,060 K-14 computing gun sights. German monthly production, 340 total aircraft gun sights, 0 with computing capability. Single American facility monthly output, 1,120 K-14 gun sights. Entire German industry monthly output, 340 gun sights across all types. American production exceeded German production by 161% in quantity and infinitely in technical capability, as German industry produced 0 computing gun sights. American fighter aircraft production reached 2,580 monthly in November 1944. German fighter production reached 1,240 monthly, down from 1,640 in April 1944 due to bombing damage and resource shortages. American production exceeded German production by 208%. American pilot training output reached 2,840 pilots monthly. German training output reached 420 pilots monthly, down from 620 in January 1944, due to fuel shortages reducing training hours from 240 to 112. American training output exceeded German output by 676%. The mathematics were catastrophic, measured across all relevant parameters: production capacity, resource allocation, technical sophistication, pilot training, and combat effectiveness. American advantages ranged from 161% to 676%. With some metrics showing infinite American superiority in areas where German capability approached 0. March 1945. Berlin, Germany, the Luftwaffe fighter arm that had dominated European skies in 1940 and held numerical parity with Allied fighters in early 1944 had ceased to exist as an effective combat force by March 1945. Fighter losses totaled 18,400 aircraft in 12 months from March 1944 to February 1945, including 13,200 destroyed in air combat and 5,200 destroyed on the ground. Pilot casualties exceeded 14,600, including 10,200 killed, 3,100 wounded, and 1,300 captured. German fighter training produced 4,800 replacement pilots during the same period, creating a deficit of 9,800 pilots that could not be recovered. Average Luftwaffe pilot combat experience declined from 180 hours in January 1944 to 47 hours in March 1945. Average pilot age declined from 23 years to 19 years. Average time from training completion to combat death declined from 14 months to 6 weeks. American fighter losses totaled 2,840 aircraft in the same period. with 920 lost in air combat and 920 lost to anti-aircraft fire and accidents. American pilot casualties totaled 2,100, including 1,400 killed, 520 wounded, and 180 captured. American fighter training produced 32,000 replacement pilots during the period, creating a surplus of 29,900 pilots beyond replacement needs. Average American pilot combat experience increased from 90 hours in January 1944 to 140 hours in March 1945, as veteran pilots survived longer and trained replacements more effectively. Kill ratios improved from 2.1.1 American favor in January 1944 to 6.8.1 in March 1945. The K-14 computing gun sight equipped 4,200 dollars. American fighters by March 1945, representing 73% of operational strength. Combat effectiveness data demonstrated K-14 equipped fighters achieved average deflection shooting accuracy of 4.7%, compared to 1.2% for fighters using standard reflector sights, a 392% improvement. Kill ratios for K-14 equipped fighters averaged 5.2.1 compared to 1.8.1 for fighters with standard sights, a 289% improvement. Average time from target acquisition to kill decreased from 47 seconds to 18 seconds, a 162% improvement. Ammunition expenditure per kill decreased from 200 rounds to 420 rounds. A 186% efficiency improvement. The strategic impact was absolute. The K-14 gun sight accelerated the Luftwaffe's destruction by approximately 8 months, according to post-war analysis by the United States Strategic Bombing Survey. Without the K-14, German fighter forces would have remained combat effective through December 1945, despite numerical inferiority. With the K-14, German fighter effectiveness collapsed by September 1944, 8 months ahead of projected timelines. The technology advantage compressed the European air war's timeline, reduced American casualties by an estimated 8,400 aircrew, and enabled strategic bombing operations that destroyed German industrial capacity, transportation infrastructure, and synthetic fuel production. The cumulative strategic impact, measured in shortened war duration, reduced casualties, and accelerated victory, represented the K-14 gun sight's true significance beyond its tactical effectiveness. The K-14 gun sight proved that democratic industrial capacity, properly mobilized, overwhelms authoritarian systems regardless of individual soldier quality or tactical excellence. Free workers producing $127 gun sights at $185 per hour outproduce slave labor systems rationing materials by the gram. Democratic cooperation among 43 suppliers coordinated by $1 a year executive exceeded totalitarian command economies directing entire industries. Industrial abundance measured in waste that exceeded enemy total production buried ideological superiority under 16 tons of discarded aluminum scrap. The mathematics were absolute. Democracies mobilized for war achieve production capacities that totalitarian states cannot match, resource allocation efficiencies that command economies cannot replicate, and technical innovation that closed societies cannot produce. The margin of superiority, ranging from 161% to infinite depending on measurement methodology, represented not just industrial advantage but systemic organizational superiority. Free societies at war possess industrial, technical, and human resource advantages that defeated enemies consistently underestimate until defeat becomes mathematically certain. March 15, 1944. Oberstleutnant Heinrich Bär had laughed at American computing gun sights. September 27, 1944. Bär died in his parachute harness, shot down by an American pilot who completed training 140 days earlier. Their mockery became history's most catastrophic miscalculation, measured in 10,200 Luftwaffe pilots killed in 12 months. 18th 400 aircraft destroyed, and the complete collapse of German air superiority in 8 months. The lesson remains: dismissing democratic nations as weak because they prefer peace, or underestimating free people's productive capacity because totalitarian systems achieve temporary tactical superiority, invites catastrophic miscalculation. Free workers outproduce slaves. Democratic organization outmanages authoritarian command. Industrial societies at war bury military societies under production capacity, measured in ratios ranging from 3.1 to infinite. The mathematics are unchanging across history. Underestimating American industrial capacity, dismissing democratic organization as inefficient compared to totalitarian systems, or assuming tactical excellence compensates for production inferiority, generates defeat measured in years of war, millions of casualties, and complete destruction of the underestimating power's military capacity. The K-14 gyroscopic computing gun sight demonstrated this lesson through 32,000 rounds fired in combat, achieving 4,200 enemy aircraft, destroyed at kill ratios averaging 5.2.1. The lesson cost Germany 10 to 200 pilots, 8 months of accelerated defeat, and the destruction of its fighter arm. The lesson remains valid. Never underestimate democracies at war.